think of a prairie, what comes to mind? Most people think it's just a bunch of grass. They're actually the site of vibrant life, of the home of thousands of species of plants, animals, insects, mammals, and birds. They're our history, our heritage, unique just to us, as botanist and ecologist Doug Ladd wrote in 2011. But most people, even in rural Nebraska, don't know about prairies or how crucial they are to our daily life and the survival of our world. I'm lucky enough to have a dad who's a biologist and ecologist who works for the Nature Conservancy, an international nonprofit organization, and who's taught me the wonder and beauties of prairies. Today, let's learn about what a prairie actually is, how important it is to our daily life, and how crucial prairies are to the survival of our world's environment and natural life. First, what is a prairie? National Geographic, in an article updated 2015, defines prairies as enormous stretches of grassland that have moderate rainfall, moderate temperatures, and few trees. Simply speaking, the sweeping grasslands that covered 170 million acres of North America in the Great Plains for over 10,000 years. National Park Service stated in 2015 that 80% of prairie plants are grasses, but 20% are flowers, forbs, and brush. They can grow from 1 to 6 feet tall, though most prairies in this part of Nebraska are about 3 feet tall. Ecosystems include not only plants, but also animals. The animals in prairies are extremely diverse. They range from tiny grasshoppers, which never leave the few square meters where they're born, to bison, pronghorn, and deer, which can roam hundreds of miles throughout their lives, to tiny burrowing owls, to prairie dogs, to snakes, to tiny spiders and butterflies. They're extremely diverse. But since our ancestors, the settlers, came to farming and turned the prairies into crop fields 150 years ago, only 1% of tallgrass prairie remains. National Park Service stated in 2015 that this makes it one of the rarest and most endangered types of habitats in the world. My dad runs a blog called The Prairie Ecologist. In 2013, he wrote, "Prairies suffer mightily from a lack of public awareness. I would guess that the majority in prairie states have never even been in a prairie, and probably think they'd be bored out of their mind or carried off by snakes if they ever went to one." So, secondly, do prairies really affect us in our daily life? Well, Nebraska farmers depend on prairies every day, whether they know it or not. Prairies do great work in the areas of flood, erosion, and runoff prevention. You might remember learning in history class about how Franklin Roosevelt sent his Civilian Conservation Corps during the Dust Bowl to plant prairie grasses all over the Midwest to hold the soil down. Today, ditches on the sides of crop fields all over the state are filled with native and non-native prairie grasses. The thick, deep root systems, which can go almost 10 feet underground, hold the soil down and keep it from washing or blowing away. Dr. C. Lee Burris of Iowa State University wrote in 2011 that prairies built the soil that our crop fields are based on. The thick roots, as they decompose, store nutrients and water. Each of us needs prairies in our daily life too, whether we're farmers or not. First of all of the food we eat is pollinated by birds, bees, insects. Pollinators are struggling, we know that, but prairies are an important home for them. Also, if you like beef, some of the best cattle in the world are raised right here in the grass-fed areas of Nebraska prairies. Thirdly, prairies are critical parts of our world's environment and natural life. Prairies are important stops on migratory flight paths for many species. The most commonly known are sandhill cranes, which stop here almost every spring for thousands of years to rest, get food and energy before the rest of their trip to Canada for their nesting grounds. Mace Hack, State Director of the Nebraska Nature Conservancy, wrote in 2015 that 90% of the sandhill crane's worldwide population stops right here in Nebraska at the Platte River every year. That's over 500,000 birds. Migratory butterflies, including monarchs, also stop in prairies. In the Niobrara Valley Preserve in northern Nebraska, there are over 70 types of butterflies, each with its own unique role in the ecosystem. Prairies also do work in the area of the process of carbon sequestration. This is the process by which plants draw carbon out of the atmosphere, out of the air, and deposit it in the soil. While trees, the most well-known for carbon sequestration, do save huge amounts of carbon every year. Judith Schwartz of Yale University wrote in 2014 that trees, once chopped down, release all their carbon right back into the air, but prairies save it forever in the root systems and in their underground. Also, prairies are beautiful. They're huge sweeping landscapes with very intricate tiny details. I love to stand in the middle of a prairie with the huge blue sky sweeping around me and listen to the insects and birds singing and the grasses waving and feel the wind and sun in my face. It's an amazing experience, and I, and all the other visitors to prairies, are reminded of how small and humble we really are. I believe this is an important thing to keep us humble and sustain life on Earth. To conclude, prairies are an incredible gift we have, whether you believe it's from God or simply present for us. I believe it is our duty to protect these ecosystems, which are so strong and yet so delicate, and remember that they are present for us, and with our responsibility they can keep going. Prairie, I hope that next time you think of a prairie, you think of it as more than just a bunch of grass or a wasteland. I hope you think instead of the abundant life present in them, of the beautiful and yet crucial bits they are to our daily life, and how important they are to our world and sustaining this circle of life.